All right, so we just recently talked about the personal workbook, the personal.xlsb, which is basically an extra workbook that invisibly follows you around everywhere that you go, like a lost little puppy. And you can store lots of macros in there. But wait, Dan, I don't see mine. Where is my personal workbook? Well, if you don't see this in your project, so of course you're going to have the project that you're working on, which might be, in this case, o2-diggingdeeper.xlsm. That's a workbook that we're playing around in. However, if you don't see another project right here in your Visual Basic editor called personal.xlsb, well, that's very easy to resolve. I'm going to show you how to do it. All you have to do is go to the Developer tab. Now, if you don't have the Developer tab, you need to look. We have a help file for you, but you're going to go to File, Options, and it's going to be in the Customize Ribbon section. You need to make sure that you click on the Developer ribbon right here and make sure that that is checked. All right. Anyway, you go to the Developer ribbon and you're going to record a macro, right? And the key to getting your personal workbook and at least making it visible is just record one quick macro in there. And don't leave it on this workbook. Go to Personal Macro Workbook. And that option will be there even if you don't see it in the Visual Basic editor. So just click OK. Just do something. It doesn't matter what you do. And then click Stop Recording. And just like that, once you hit Alt F11, then it will acknowledge that you have a personal XLSB workbook. And then you can expand the modules and look at the stupid code that it just did somewhere, right? Anyway, so now you have the personal workbook. Now that's the starting point. That's not the end all, right? So let me show you really quick. I have in one of these modules, I have a really cool formula that I made for this called concat all. And basically what it does is it joins multiple cells into one big string. And that's only useful in very rare scenarios, I realize. But check this out. Here's what it does. So if I use, and if I try to do equals concat all, and then I try to select the cells that I want to concatenate, do you think it's going to work? Show of hands. I can't see you, bud. No, it doesn't work. Here's why. Because we have to tell it in the first place, we have to tell it this is coming from the personal workbook. Now I'm going to show you a workaround that's going to make this a lot easier. But first of all, let's double click on this formula. First of all, we have to say personal.xlsb exclamation mark. So this means this is the workbook that we're using that is open, even though it doesn't look like it's open. It's secretly and visibly always open now. And then the exclamation mark means now we're getting to the actual function from that other workbook. So you can do a function or a sub. Oops, what did I do? There we go. Now hit enter. And now it has ran the function that concatenates all of these products. Valve 001, Stink Bomb 127, Valve 001, Ninja Training. And let me show you how that works, by the way. What it does is it takes a range that we've selected. We selected this big range over here, E2 through E20. And it takes that range. It says for each cell value basically in that range that we've selected, I want to take the current value, so it started out with nothing, and take that value and add on to whatever the first cell value is. So that would be valve 001. And then it would go to the next cell and concatenate all. As we recall, it has the value of valve 001. But now it's going to be equal to valve 001 and whatever the next one is, Stink Bomb 127. And it'll just go through and keep on stockpiling this variable with more and more stuff, snowballing it until when the function is over, now this variable contains a big stupid string that says valve blah blah blah, etc. So that's how that works. And furthermore, actually, it might be more useful for me to ampersand and add a comma to that. So basically, it would be whatever the cell value with a comma after it, and then it would move on to the next cell. So actually what that would look like if I click here and then hit enter, it'd be valve 001, comma, Stink Bomb 127, comma, valve 001. So I like comma separated a lot better. If I control C on that cell, and then I right click and just paste the values, now I have a giant comma separated string, which will never change. Anyway, so that's how you do that. But But there's a much easier way than having to type in equals personal.xlsb, exclamation mark. There's a lot better way. So we're going to show you that way right away. So really quickly, we're essentially going to give this personal.xlsb workbook a nickname. Right now it's called VBA project, and that don't jive. You know why? Because this is also called VBA project. They're all called VBA project. That's a stupid nickname. So let's click on the personal.xlsb one, and let's go down here to the properties window. By the way, if you don't have the properties window, just hit F4 or go to view properties window, which is F4. Anyway, we click on this and we go here. Let's give it a more meaningful name. In my case, I'm going to name this Dan Personal WB. All right. Now you're saying, well, Dan, that's just a lot of stuff I still have to type. Well, guess what? You don't have to type that. Here's what we're going to do. That's just basically making it a lot easier for us to find. But let's go back to our somewhere within our regular workbook that we're looking at here. And if we go to tools and we go to references, now we're going to look for the one called Dan Personal WB. That's right. You guessed it. We just gave ourselves a shortcut, a nickname to the personal workbook, and now it's available in the references section. So if we click on the checkbox next to that and we hit OK, we've just created a reference to the personal workbook. So now that we have that reference in place, guess what we don't have to do? We have a reference in place, you guys. Let's erase this whole thing for a second. Let's start fresh. So I'm going to click equals, and I'm going to type concat all. Now, obviously, the IntelliSense doesn't drop down right now, but let's just see if this works without any further reference to the workbook. If I hit enter, well, what do you know? Equals concat all didn't show up in the drop-down list, but it sure as heck worked, didn't it? And I didn't have to put the personal dot whatever. So that's how you can create a reference to your personal workbook. Now remember, the personal workbook is only ever going to follow you around on your particular login instance of Windows. So if you have a different user log into that, it's not necessarily good. They're going to have a different personal workbook, right? So that's not the end all for sharing macros, but it is if you want to keep a macro or two or a function or two handy for yourself. And of course in VBA, let's go into VBA. I'm just going to pick any module, create a quick fly-by-night kind of function here. So we're going to create a function. We're going to call it hello world 1 2 3, and it's just going to simply return the words hello world because we're just testing, right? So hello 1 2 3 equals hello world. All right, let's see if we can return that using the other workbook, but we want to return that without any special references to our personal workbook. So that should work anyways without the fancy references and stuff that we just did. But let's go ahead and just say we're going to do a message box with the result of this function called hello world 1 2 3, and let's just hit F5, and it says hello world. So it looks like that works just fine for you. In the next lecture, we're going to show you how you can do one better. You can actually create an Excel add-in, which is a tool that, just like the personal workbook, will attach itself to a workbook, but it also is something that you can easily share to other people, and then they can essentially install that add-in and not even have to know what they're doing or that there's macros that are in there, but that will follow it along. And in fact, the IntelliSense will even cooperate a little bit better, I believe, in the sheet. So let's go ahead and dive in the next lecture, learn how to make our own add-ins. Cool stuff. We'll see you in the next lecture.